back to it, whatever the case is. I'm here live from the HCC with some people face to face and other people perhaps watching on the live stream. Let's see if I need to refresh my preview of that. I wanted to do the live stream today for two reasons. First of all, there are some things that I wanted to kind of say once, or to kind of get across to everyone pretty, more efficiently, and I can do that more efficiently like this with the stream and face to face. But also, since we're working on this project where many of you are at different stages, you have very different goals. I wanted to try to address as many of those as I can. And as far as teaching HTML and CSS or anything complex, really, I find that it helps students to have multiple ways to learn it. And so one of those ways is me in person, and that's what I'm offering here. That's what I'm doing here. And I can kind of recreate that a little bit on Discord. But also I want to show you how to learn from different resources. Like I started writing up my own detailed tutorial, but then I thought this has already been done. There are lots of websites that already have these. So I think I'm going to, it would be a better use of my time to just show you those and then show you how to learn some things. The only things that are specific to our processes are like how to work with UMW domains. Even though our setup there is very typical, it might not be easy to find a tutorial that explains exactly how to do these things on UMW domains. So I can offer that as my unique content, I guess. What I'm doing here, I've got OBS streaming. This is what my streaming setup normally looks like. And as you can see in this view, I've got some HTML and I've got a preview of that HTML. And this is where I got along helping a student in the last section. So those of you here now, I can do something similar. But first, I wanted to show you something else. And this is for everybody on the stream and anyone else who may be watching. Actually, that's the one I want. Okay, so this is my Chrome browser. So ultimately, your goal right now is to create a retro homepage. So that's a homepage that pretends as though it's 1998. I just picked that year kind of arbitrarily, but I just wanted to think about how people used to be on the web and why people used to make things on the web. And I think it's pretty interesting to think back to that time and think of how far we've come. The technology is actually still the same. Like the things that we use to put things on the web now is still fundamentally HTML. So it is a useful skill to learn still, even if we're using it in a retro kind of way to do this kind of quirky project. It actually is something you can apply in a more modern context. So just the retro thing helps us think back about helps us think about the cultural aspects of the web from the 90s, but the technical parts are still the same pretty much. When it comes down to it, I will recommend some things that you code things in ways that are more modern than how we used to code them in the 90s. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same, and you can definitely make things look the same now, but with different, more modern coding techniques. So this just happens to be Brian Wolf's page. I just had that up because I was trying to help him with something. But what I wanted to show you is the web ring that I've set up. So I was talking a bit about in GeoCities and that era, a way that you would connect your site to other sites is by joining a web ring. And the idea is you would submit your website URL to the web ring owner, and you'd say, hey, I'd like to be part of this your horse's web ring or whatever it is, or vampires. And they'd say, okay, well, let me see your site. And you send them a site and they'd review it. And if they accepted your application, you would be on the web ring. And that means that you would be linked to other sites through this thing called a web ring. The web ring is a bit of code that would appear on yours, so it would appear on your page. So whenever I'm looking at Jessica's webpage about vampires, I don't know what you plan on making yours about, but let's say it's about vampires. At the bottom, it would say, this is site number 17 of the vampires web ring. And you can click a link to go to the next site in the web ring, or the previous site in the web ring, or the random other site in the web ring. You don't have to know what they are. You just click the link and see what you get. And that kind of almost blind surfing is kind of how we used to experience the web. Now we just go straight to what we think we want by Googling it and trusting the first result. But it used to be a much more explorative process, and that's kind of what I'm trying to recreate here. So web ring software is very simple programmatically, it turns out. And I found this code, this PHP web ring software from the year 2000, and it still works. So I had to hack it a little bit, but it works okay. And I've set up this little interface for it. So the idea is, if you already know your URL, like if you've got your domain, your subdomain created, you've got your homepage URL figured out, go ahead and submit it here on this page. So where it says the URL, you type that in. I'm not going to put this in Discord because I don't know if everyone's had a chance to hear this explanation of it yet, but it is in the Canvas announcement if you read that. Um, this is a very like hacked together form. So there is no vetting. There's no like checking to make sure the URL works. So yeah, I guess make sure you've got it right before you submit it. If it is wrong, I can fix it. Like I can manually adjust the links there. But I'll show you what it's doing. It's actually just adding that, whatever you submit here, it's adding it to this list. So this is the list that the WebBring software is using. And currently there's a few on there already, which is great. And then now that those are on there, let's see if Alex has added it yet. Yeah, so actually Alex already has added it. You can add some code that will indicate that you're part of the DGST 395 WebRing, as Alex has already done here. So this is great. So now that this is here, this is Alex's site, but I can click next, and I can go to someone else's site in the WebRing, which turns out to be mine. But that's fine. You know, it doesn't matter. Or you can click a random site, and it goes to, this is Katya's. So that's the idea. And then Katya, yeah, she's got it on here too. Great. So then I can click random again, and randomly it shows the same site. Or I can go random again, and yeah, great. This is Crystal's site. Oh, wow. Oh, okay. Crystal is really getting into the moving things, the things moving around. I love it. I will say I love it in a retro kind of way. I think this is actually, I don't recommend in contemporary design context, you really shouldn't have text that moves around, but that was definitely a thing people did in the 90s. That was definitely a big aspect of 90s web design. So this is great. So this is Crystal, and her webpage is about crystals. So that's great. Okay, so that's the idea. So once you've added yours here, it'll show up, and then we can link to it. I've got a few placeholder pages because I was testing it, but this is the true test of it. I want to see you all add some your pages and then see how it works. Okay, so that's the WebRing bit. Once I've kind of figured out how this works and tested it, I will make other more topical WebRings. So that depends on what your topics are, but so far I know that some people are doing things related to TV and some are doing things related to gaming. I guess crystals or maybe spiritualism would be a broader category for that. Do you all know what you want to do your websites about yet? I just threw out vampires, but that's what do you really want to do? Jessica, do you have an idea? Okay, that's fine. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there. Emily, do you have an idea yet?
Not really. I like tried something earlier, but is it just like a random homepage cover right now, or?
Yeah, it's literally anything. So I'm trying to harken back to the days when people would have like a theme, like they would make a web page about a topic. So, oh, that would be great.
Kind of random right now because I'm like still messing around with like the
Yeah,
text, but
yeah.
I'm just
So there are definitely a lot of, if you dig into GeoCities, there are lots and lots of conspiracy theory GeoCities pages under the Area 51 neighborhood is what they called it back then. So that's great. Yes. So I support that if that's what you want to do. Now you could do a couple things with that. Like you could say, here's some interesting conspiracy theories. Like, so you could make it like the voice of someone studying conspiracy theories, or it could be like, here's the secret to how the government is really run, or like you could be promoting a conspiracy theory with your site if you believe one. If there's one that you think we all should know about, then you could do that. Um, but yeah, that could also be a really big rabbit hole. So I don't know how far into that you want to go. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Just a picture that captures some of the more interesting ones or more silly ones, maybe. I mean, some conspiracies can be very dark, and so I would recommend the lighter weight ones, if you know what I mean. You know, things like the whole like I mean, I know this is a little dark, but there's the one theory that like what's her name? The singer, the Canadian Avril Lavigne. Yeah. So if you have the theory that she's not herself, that she's been replaced by a clone. So that's one. Yeah, that's a good one. Or the idea that like it's kind of a big one, but the idea that the Berenstain Bears phenomenon indicates that sometime in the recent past we all forked into an alternative universe. If you remember this one. Yeah, it's the Mandela effect is what it's called. There's a movie, I guess, based on this idea, right? But like, Emily, do you know this one? Okay, so how do you spell the Berenstain Bears book series?
Yeah.
So how do you spell Berenstain?
I think I saw it somewhere, and then it was like two different like spells of it or something, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly.
So You probably did, yeah. So I'll throw up a little document just to show you what the two different spellings of it. So most people, if they are typing it, I don't care. So this is this Mandela effect theory. So so the Baron is the two writers, right? I think it's Jan and Stan. Berenstein, right? Or Berenstein, right? Many people would spell it this way. In fact, though, it is really spelled like this with the A, and people seeing this and noticing it were surprised, and instead of just kind of deciding that maybe they misremembered it from childhood, they decided that actually this is wrong. The real answer lies in the universe that we all used to be part of, but have now we've all forked into this mirror dimension. So, and it goes along with a lot of like science fiction tropes of like the mirror universe. That's the thing Star Trek did all the time. And the mirror universe is always worse. And there's like people that are good in the normal universe are evil in the mirror universe. Lots of people in the mirror universe have goatees in Star Trek for some reason. So there's that. But like people really believe, I guess, I don't know how seriously they take this belief, but this is a pretty well developed theory. And there are other examples of it. The other example, it's called the Mandela effect because some people remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison, which he did not. So that's something that people have named as a thing that they believed was true that turns out not to be true, and they've extrapolated that belief into this theory. So yeah, that's a pretty fun one. I like that conspiracy theory. Yeah. Oh, did I even get it wrong? Is it Berenstain? Like Google thinks I should spell it this way. I don't even know. That makes more sense as a real name, as opposed to the thing about the bears, right? With the bear. I don't know. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. Who knows where I will end up? Okay, yeah. So, Jillian, do you have any ideas yet, or have you thought about this at all? Yeah, the goal is really just pick any topic at all. So, thinking about like in the '90s, we were looking at some sites from GeoCities, and people are like, "These are my favorite X-Files episodes." A lot of X-Files content in the '90s. So things like that. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities, obviously. I'm trying to find Katya's example because Katya really got into the whole sort of time travel thing. So this is a Deep Space Nine fan site, and Deep Space Nine is a great show to be a fan of. And so this is very similar to a lot of sites you could find in the '90s about Deep Space Nine. So yeah, cool. So let me know what your once I get a sense of more topics, then I can add more topical things. But I have to make each of these web rings manually, and it's not just copying and pasting. Like I have to go in and change a lot of the code. So I'll try to keep them kind of broad so that you can find the right one to join. But you know, I'd like for you all to join this DGST 395 one so that you can be part of this group and also test out this software and make sure it actually works. Yeah, I have Facebook in there. I should take that out. Cool. Any questions about the topics or the web ring yet? All right, cool. So let me get into a couple of things. So as I said at the outset, many of you in entering this assignment or wherever you are with this assignment right now, you might be at very different places. And so I'm going to back up a little bit from what I have here just to kind of get you oriented and make sure that as I talk about this kind of stuff, hopefully that you can kind of find your way to it from the beginning. So this is kind of the end result of setting up your working environment or your workflow. I like to work this way where I have code on the left and then what I'm doing on the output on the right. So input on the left, output on the right. But what I'm doing here specifically is I'm using Sublime Text. This is the text editor that I'm using to write HTML code. In this case, there are lots of other text editors you're welcome to use. Notepad++ is a good one. It's Windows only, but it's good if you're on Windows, obviously. I think it's on Windows only. There's lots of others, but really, there's nothing special about the code that they're writing, like the content, like the text that I type in here. It just is plain text. As long as it's something that writes plain text as opposed to rich text or formatted text, then you're fine as far as writing code. I just happen to like some of the bells and whistles of Sublime Text. But if you like the bells and whistles of something else, or you prefer something with no bells or whistles, you're welcome to use that as well. My environment, let me switch into this scene here. This will look a little crazy for a second, but this is I'm showing you my home page here, or my desktop, so I can show you a few things about what I've already got set up here. So there we go. So this is a computer I don't use often. This is the instructor station in the HCC. But I wanted to show you how I've set up this temporary project, this demo project here. This is on my desktop, and on my desktop I have a folder called Retro Project. I just noticed, why isn't it showing up here? Like I can't visually see it on my homepage, on my desktop. But it's here, right? Am I just missing it? Oh, it is. Okay, it was hidden behind this one. I was having a momentary existential crisis there. Okay, but there it is. So this folder called Retro Project contains so far a single HTML page and a single image, but I really recommend you start with the folder. So figure out where you want this to live on your computer or in your cloud drive or whatever you like to use for files, but make it one place. Make it one folder, and then that's going to be your web page. That it's going to include several files eventually, but it's going to start with an HTML file. It doesn't technically matter what you name this file. In this case, I've called it retro homepage. The only thing that you want to make sure of is that it ends in .html, and you can verify that if you are in Windows, at least by clicking on the View tab when you're looking at it in the folder view like this, and then there's a checkbox for showing or hiding file name extensions. This is what it looks like if you have them hidden. And you can see the computer knows that this is an HTML file because it has the Internet Explorer icon, but I want to verify that. I want to really know what this is. And I also want to know what the full name of this file is. So I'm going to click on that checkbox to see that. I always recommend this anyway. I like to see hidden files too, so I recommend both. But hidden files is not necessary in this case. It's just, I like it. There are no hidden files here, so it's fine either way. So yeah, just make sure you can see what it is. Also, by the way, just as a side note, since this is coming up with the Internet Explorer icon, that means if I double click it, it's going to open this in Internet Explorer. And it works okay. Obviously it works now. In general, I really do not recommend using this browser though for web design stuff because it has problems that are kind of hard to see until you've gotten pretty far into it. And I just recommend it's better off starting with a web browser that has a better toolkit for design built into it. So I recommend Firefox or Chrome instead of Internet Explorer or Safari. Safari is also not great. They are web browsers. They will let you look at a web page as you create it, but there are some nice debugging tools built into Chrome especially, so I recommend it for that reason. So it's just that this is set up on this computer. It's got Internet Explorer as the default browser. Okay, so hopefully this all makes sense so far. So what I'm doing, this is Sublime Text editing that file. And I've already done this, but what I can do to verify is go to File and then Save As. And then this is the file that I'm creating, Save As, in this case, retrohomepage.html. But again, the name doesn't matter except for the last part, the HTML part. Where it says Save As Type, I was trying to help Brian debug this. This doesn't actually do anything. So I just leave it on all files because I know what I want to name this, and that's how I indicate what type of file it is, like the .html, right? So I just overwrote it, but it doesn't matter. So I've already got some content in here, but when you're first starting with your web design or with a web page, you're going to use something called the HTML skeleton. And I've jumped over here to this browser because I wanted to show you this on W3 Schools. W3 Schools is a great way to learn HTML. I like it a lot because HTML is a very top-down language, and they've got a very top-down tutorial method here where you kind of see the big concept and then you look at the little concepts that make up that big concept later. So you kind of start with the big picture and then you start drilling down into some more specific instructions. And when it comes to HTML, that top is this document structure right here. This is the blank, this is the beginning point of a web page, right? So on W3 Schools, they have this nice thing called the Try It Yourself editor. So you click on this and you can see what this code will do, and you can make changes and then hit the run button and see what happens. It's a good way to learn because it's self-contained and temporary, and then it just goes away. And then, but if you end up doing something you really like, you can copy and paste this into your actual code that you're working on in Sublime Text or whatever else. But here, this is this is a good starting point. In fact, I'm just going to take this and then just replace all of the stuff I already did just with that, just to show you the really simple structure here. There's some pretty important parts of the structure to make sure you take note of. This has already added some content to it, but before let me actually strip down a little bit more. Let me go down even more on this. This is actually the fundamental structure of an HTML document. This is 3 tags or 3 elements which really need to be here the way you see them, and nothing else. So the The first line, that's the doc type. It's kind of like the preamble. It's technically redundant, but it's fine to leave it. It's good to have it. But the actual structure starts here, where we have the opening HTML tag, and then it closes on the last line. It opens on the first line of code, and then it closes on the last line of code. And that's where the HTML tag should always be, and nowhere else. You should never have any other HTML elements inside of a single page. It shouldn't be nested. It's just one big HTML. And then within this, you have two tags that are children of HTML. Sometimes it's a good idea to indent them to show that relationship. They are both immediate children of the HTML tag. So they are also siblings. So the head and body are siblings. If you notice, the head closes just before the body opens. And so we should end head here and then open body here. There should be nothing between them, and there also should not be any overlap. So you would not want to do it like this, right? You see what's wrong here? Can you see what I did, Emily? Yeah, so I closed head after body opened. So they, instead of sitting like this, they're like this now, and that's not what I want. Yeah, so that's, let me move that back up here. You can put space like this if it helps you see it more clearly, but you don't want any code between these. HTML does not care about white space, so if it looks more clear to you to write, not that, but if it looks more clear to put a bunch of spaces there or to keep these fully left, it doesn't really matter. But just as long as you keep the sequence right. Okay, so the body is where we're going to see things, and then the head is where we're going to put some instructions for how this page should be treated by the web browser. So the first one that we'll start with in the body is an H1 tag. So what should I make this web page about? Somebody give me a topic. Jessica, give me a topic. Vampire. Yeah, I should probably just go with vampires. Okay, so we'll do vampires. Vampires that are friends. I don't know. So something like that. So this is going to be the first thing you see when you look at my webpage. This is the H1 tag. H1, in this case, the 1 just means most important. It doesn't mean first, although it is first in this case. The 1 just means this is the thing that this page is about. So I'll just do vampires are friends because I like that better. So we can take a look at this page and not like that. The way it was before. I got that size just right for the OBS thing. All right, this will work. So I want to show you this workflow the way I like to do it. So now that I've created this document, I've saved this new change with the H1 that I've created there. Then I can open it in Chrome. I just need to make sure that I'm looking at the right URL. So if I go to Control O in Chrome, it's going to pop up and let me see that. On the stream you can't see this, but I'm selecting that file that I just created and verifying it that I can see the thing that I expected. In this case, I wrote an H1 tag with the text vampires are friends, and now I can see that as a result on this page, and now I've got this web page about vampires. So that's part of the text that you can see because it's in the body tag. The head tag is where I can write other things, including the title tag. And the title tag, I wanted to make sure to explain this because it looks very similar to the H1, and in fact, it often has the same text as the H1, but it does something different. So let's say vampires. No, not that. Vampires. I'll just say Vampire Central. I don't know. So as I type, by the way, you might have noticed that the X in the tab corner here turned into a circle. That means I have unsaved changes in Sublime Text. So I had that saved there. If you use Notepad++, the little disk icon turns red when you have unsaved changes. You always want to make sure that you're up to date when you're previewing it. So I'm going to save those changes, refresh it in Chrome, and do you see what difference that made? So I'll put them next to each other so you all can see them well. Jillian, you see the difference? Yeah. So it's not here, it's not in the visible part, it's in the tab title. So it's saying to the browser, this is this page. This is how this page is different. It's called Vampire Central. Okay, good. All right, so how much time do we have? Do we go to 3:40 in this class? Is that right? Yeah, I think that's right. Sorry, these time bands are all weird to me this year. Okay, so that's where we are. So we're going to 3. So we have a few minutes. This is good. So what else should I add to this page? Let's kind of go with it that way. And also, if you're on the stream, if you have any questions, yeah, Megan has put it on the stream. Looks like a site that would have a virus. I don't know if she means the WebRing page, but yeah, it kind of does. It's old. So what is it? What should we add to this page? And I'll just kind of go with it that way because there's anything I could show you all kinds of things, but I'd rather show you things that you were trying to figure out how to do. So I'll put that out there. If anyone's on watching the stream, if you have any requests, or anyone here, if you have any requests, what would you like to see? Yes, Jessica. You one. Pictures, yeah, that's a good one. Is that what you're gonna ask too? Oh, okay, yeah, I can do both of those pretty quickly, I think. Okay, sure. So those are both pretty. I can do both those pretty quickly, I think, actually. So let me start with Emily's first, because then that'll give me a way to explain how Jessica's question is different. Image tags are a little different. So let's do 2 things. First of all, let's do a paragraph, and that in this case, the paragraph is just a P tag. The P stands for paragraph. So I don't know what to say about vampires, except that they've gotten a bad reputation for some reason. So I don't know. So that's a paragraph. Hit save and then refresh and then see what that looks like. And that's just inline, just regular text, right? Just showing up there. So that's a paragraph. Obviously, you could say more or less. It doesn't matter. If you're just having text, it's just text. The paragraph is the semantically the correct tag, because in general you want your tags to be semantic. In other words, to convey the meaning of what this thing does for the document, and that's what this is. This is a paragraph of text, and so it should have a P tag, right? So to do lists get a little bit more complicated because you have to have 2 types of tag that are nested. So let's do a bulleted list first. So it's 2 tags that work together. There's one called UL, which opens and closes, and that stands for unordered list. That says this thing that's coming here, this is a list. And then you have to separate each item in that list with LI tags. LI stands for list item. So LI, so let's say, what do we want to say about vampires? They are actually nice. They are better than werewolves. My best friend is a vampire. I'm starting to build out a story here. So each item then has its own opening and closing LI tag. So you see how I did that like that. So that's the first item, the second item, the third item. And when I save this, Control S, and then over here, refresh, Control R, they'll show up as bulleted items like that. So sound good so far? Okay, now here's one of the fun things about HTML, because let's say I realize actually I want this to be an ordered list. I want these to be numbers instead of bullets. I can change that with one tweak here. Instead of UL, I can make this OL, and OL stands for ordered lists. So if I just do that, change the U's to O's, refresh, and now I have 1, 2, 3. So I didn't have to type 1, 2, 3. I don't have to keep track of how many or which number I'm on, or if I change my mind about how many to have and I need to take out the second one, I don't have to renumber them all. HTML does that for me. If you want to get really fancy with CSS, you can tell it to do letters or Roman numerals or symbols. You can do different kinds of ways of expressing order, but that's all handled automatically by the web browser if you tell it what it is. Sound good? Okay, great. So let's do an image of a vampire, I guess. So we're going to use image tags, but the thing with images is that images are separate files. So part of what we're doing here is writing a tag that does this, but also we need to have a file that we can work with that's a picture of a vampire, I guess. I don't know. So let's get over here and get one. Let's go to, I like Unsplash. Somebody's been searching for Unspeakable. Do you all know who that is? Like the YouTuber Unspeakable? I don't even know how he found out, but my son is like a huge fan of Unspeakable, and I have no idea who Unspeakable is, or if it's like age appropriate for an 8-year-old to be obsessed with this guy. It seems like he just does annoying like prank videos. They're not like dangerous prank videos, but just like kind of dumb ones. Like I don't know, but he has like billions of followers, so or millions. I don't know, probably not billions. Let's see if I can find something. I've gone to unsplash.com, and this is a site where you can get images that are free to use. Most of these are probably going to be, yeah, a bit much, but at least they illustrate the idea of an image, and so we can work with it there. These are all public domain, or they've been released into the public domain. I like these images. That image. This looks pretty cool. So let's say this is the one I want to use. I'm going to download it. And in fact, this will illustrate a couple of useful points here about this, because it's going to be a huge image. So I'm downloading this, and it's asking me to give credit to the photographer. I can do that. I will do that later, but for now, I just want to show you how to work with the file, because you can get images in different ways. But I just saved it, so let's see where it went on my computer. I don't know. Let me switch on the stream. Let me switch over to the desktop view so I can make sure that I find this. I think it went in my downloads. And there it is, yeah. It's got this long file name. I'm going to drag this to my desktop, and then from my desktop into my retro project folder, so that it's in the same folder as the HTML file that I'm working on. So you can see how that's there alongside it. This is the file I'm editing in Sublime Text, and then this is the file I just downloaded. It's got a long file name, so I'm going to rename it to something shorter, just bats.jpg, so it's easier for me to enter that in my code, which is what I need to do. I'm going to need to know the name of this to type the code that will include it. Okay, so everything good so far? Everybody okay? All right, good. So let's say I want to put it down here just after this list. The tag that I want to use is called image. Let me switch my scene back here. The tag, let's go like this. Okay, so just for organizational purposes, I'm going to put a horizontal line here, which is the HR tag. And the tag for including an image is IMG, so it's short for image, I guess. It is like this tag I just did for HR in that it doesn't have a separate opening and closing part, it just closes itself. And then you tell it what to do and what image to display by adding attributes, and that's what I'm going to show you now. So attributes are name value pairs. It's a thing and then an equal sign and then the value that you're setting that thing to. So the value that we want in this case is the name of the file we want to load. So it's src, that's the source, that means source basically. So it's src and then an equal sign and then in quote marks the name of the file that I just downloaded, bats.jpg. Now this is going to work because this is in the same folder. Technically what I'm doing here is I'm giving it a path to the file, and the path is just the name as long as they're in the same folder. If they are in different folders, the path has to be more complicated, but you can do it that way too. Depends on how you've set up your site. But in this case, I'm recommending keeping things simple. Just keep it in the same folder, bats.jpg. There are other attributes, but we'll start with this one and see what it does, and then we'll probably need to make some revisions. So let's see how it looks. Let me find the right tab. Right window, not that one, this one. Close, I don't need that anymore. So let's see how it looks on my webpage. Yeah, okay. There it is, kind of. You see the problem though? It's enormous. Like this is a very, very large image. And when I say large, I mean it in both the amount of data of the file, like it's probably a 2 or 3 megabyte file, and also in terms of the display size of it, it's huge. So we don't want that. That's too big. Even though I have an unusually narrow window here, that's still way too big, even if I had this at full screen size. That's because these are high quality, high resolution images that are coming from this photo site. I actually want to make this much smaller. So there are 2 ways to make it smaller. I'm going to show you the wrong way first, or I'll show you one way to do it that gets you something quickly, but is not the best way to do it. In HTML, I can actually set the width and height as attributes. So I could say width equals some number, let's say 500, and I could say height equals some number, I don't know, 650. I actually don't know what the original dimensions of this are, and so you'll see whether or not those are reasonable dimensions for this after I refresh. So let's see. Okay, so it made it a lot smaller, but it looks kind of smushed to me, if I remember correctly, how the bats looked originally. because I wasn't sure about those numbers. I was guessing, and I probably guessed wrong. But you can actually set these values to anything, and the web page will do its best to display it the way you asked it to display it. In this case, that's pretty narrow. That's probably not the effect you want. And as you squish and compress or stretch these images, you'll get ugly looking effects, and I don't recommend that. Instead, if you want this image smaller, really what you should do is just make it a smaller image. So this is pretty easy to do in different software. Different computers might work differently, but I'll switch back to this view for it. Let's see, how do I open this? Yeah, so Paint 3D is the default image editor on this computer. So I need a new app. Why does it tell me I need a new app? It suggested that app. That wasn't my idea, that was your idea, computer. Well, let's see, do I have anything on here that can open this? Paint, right? Isn't that what I don't know what's happening. Okay, so here, I think this is the button that lets you resize it. So let's go with pixels. Yeah, it's 5,000 pixels wide, which is humongous. Like, you don't ever want that. Let's go down to 600. That's a much more reasonable size. And this is going to actually going to scale the image down. So this is changing the image file. And that's what I wanted. So now this is a much smaller file. I just made that change, saved it with the same file name. And, it still looks like the same picture of bats, right? But now if I take these two attributes off, save that, refresh, it's a much more reasonable size. I might still want to go a little smaller, but it's much closer to what I want. And that's, you can see how I got there, hopefully. Okay, so you can still do width and height attributes even if after you've done this, and that is a good idea if you know the exact numbers, which I do in this case because I just set them. Okay, the other attribute that you need for images, because this is working, but I'm not totally done yet. I need to add what's called an alt attribute, so it's ALT, and then an equal sign, and then this is where I should write a text description of this image. A photo of the evening sky with silhouettes of flying bats. So the alt description here, this alt tag is important because watch what happens if I get something wrong here. Let's say I include the wrong file name or the image is messed up for some reason. That alt description is going to show up if the image doesn't. And that might be important. If this is an important part of your web page, you should know why it's important, and you should want your readers to know why it's important, even if they can't see it. There are two reasons why they might not be able to see it. One is that you might have an error in the file and it might not load that file. Another reason might be that they actually can't see. And so you want to make sure your web page still makes sense to someone who can't see it visually. For users like that, they're probably using software that reads the content of the page to them. And if you don't have an alt tag here, that software doesn't know what that is a picture of. It can't guess what that is, so you need to tell it, and you do that with the alt tag there. So that's an image. But let me correct that so it actually is a working example before you kind of see it the wrong way. So there we go. Okay, good. So everybody, did that answer your question, Jessica? Okay, good. So let me show you one other way another thing you might want to do with images that is pretty different and also lets me introduce another concept. And you saw this demonstrated in the earlier version of this webpage where there was a tiling background. And I'm just going to use the same Pokemon background image that I was using for that Emily's example, different Emily. So this is going to use something called style sheets. And this is an example where I'm going to do something that has an old-fashioned look, but I'm going to do it in the contemporary way of coding this, like the recommended way of coding it, as opposed to the old-fashioned way of coding it. So we're going to do this in the head. Remember, the head is where we have the parts of the document that are going to be about the page and give it meta information about what to do. And that's where we put style information that tells the web page how to look. Structure should be conveyed with HTML, and then presentation should be conveyed with CSS wherever possible. So I'm going to make an element here called style. And within this, I'm going to write CSS code. CSS code is built on top of HTML, but it has its own syntax and language, and can be different to learn, but not too bad. But it helps to learn HTML first, and then add CSS to that. I'm trying to find, yeah, so for W3 schools, they have a whole separate tutorial for CSS. It is pretty abstract. It takes a little practice to get used to it, but these are examples of CSS things you could do. Like I could do these right now. In fact, I could probably just copy all these and get, that would all do something here. And I could just paste these into my style area here. You notice that I'm not writing HTML syntax anymore, but Sublime Text recognized that I was writing CSS, and it highlighted and colored things according to that, just because I put them inside of the style tag. So I just need to save that and then see what difference it makes over here. And yeah, makes a pretty interesting difference. Got a nice blue background. I've got different colors, different fonts being used. So that's a good example of what you can do with CSS. And honestly, a lot of CSS stuff for kind of cosmetic changes like that. Just find something. If you find a page you like, you can copy their code and run with it. That's fine. Let me show you how to get a background image on there. This is going to take a little bit of, well, not too much, actually. So you see how the body, this thing on line 8 is applying some styles that impact the body tag itself. So that's all of the visible content. And right now this is setting the background color to be a light blue, which is fine. But I want to make it, instead of that color, I want to make it an image. So I'm going to add this here, background image, and then I'm going to give it the URL of, what is it? Yeah, so I have an image here called background.png that I downloaded earlier. And this is an image that's designed to tile, so as it repeats left and right or vertically, it'll look seamless. So you'll see how that looks in a moment. So it's just called background. I think I can just type the file name here. I think this will work. Let's see. No. Save. Control R. No, is that not working? Okay, so I have an error, so I need to see. Oh, I have a typo. See my typo? It's missing a G. Yeah, now it worked. When you have errors, by the way, let me show you how to debug them in Chrome, and then I'll wrap it up. So Chrome is great, as I said, for doing design work, especially because you can see it at different sizes, but also it's got this nice developer toolkit built in. So if you do this menu here, you click on whatever that is, 3 dots, and then you go to more tools, and then developer tools. You can get this little thing here. It's kind of crowded, so I want to pop it out into its own window. But this is giving me information about this web page that helps me understand what Chrome thinks of my page. So I know what I meant to write, but I'm not sure if I wrote it right. I'm not sure how Chrome interprets it, but I can see how Chrome is interpreting it right here. So this is my code, but it's been processed already by Chrome. So if there's some kind of typo in what I did, if it didn't parse correctly as HTML, it would show up weirdly here, even if it looked normal to me. And I can see things here do seem to be working pretty much the way I wrote them, with some slight differences typographically, but it all ends up working. But this is where if I were having an issue, like let me see. So here this is working now, but let me switch it back to the version that was broken where it was missing something. So in the way I had it, if I click on the body tag, I can see what it's trying to do. So if you can see right here, I'm clicking on different parts of the document, and as I click on it, this down below shows me what it is interpreting that to look like. And when I clicked on the body tag here, it showed me what it's trying to load as the background, but there's no image popping up. It's actually not working. And if I were to try to open this in a new tab, I'm going to get a file not found because there is no file here. And so that's my clue that I did something wrong in naming it. And that's why, if that was my issue, I hopefully would have realized that that's the correct spelling, and then I would have been able to do it. Okay, so that was a quick kind of guide through HTML, hopefully kind of building on some things you've seen before. Since we're about out of time here, I will take any questions if there are any, and then otherwise wrap it up. So are there any questions or last minute things you want me to show you on the stream? And this is for anybody watching on the stream too. You can throw things in the channel. Oh, and actually Megan did ask a question a little while ago about adding color and text to background, but you just saw it because that's how you do it with CSS, like I just did. You change the color of the text, the font of the text, and the font of the background, and so on. So, yeah, Emily.
I was going to ask,
Oh, like the summary and reflection kind of thing? Yes, I do. I had a different thing in that assignment page, so, and I deleted it, but I don't think I added it back, so I will do that.
Alright, cause we also
Yeah.
have like the emoji things of like what you wanted us to
Oh, yeah, yeah.
write about and each thing.
Right. I need to go back and do that because I tried to I did this module differently. I keep changing how I'm doing things. Ultimately, I'm not like, checking all the boxes for you. Like, I just want you to have a moment to reflect on what's been going on. I want to see you connecting dots basically, and so yeah, I will provide some instructions along those lines, but mainly work on finishing your webpage. That's the actual work. Okay, so I'm not sure what the significance of the piglin dance is that someone just shared for me in Discord, but okay, I'll watch that later, I guess. Thomas. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna wrap up the stream then. Unless there's any other quick questions that I can answer here. All right, cool. So thanks for watching the stream. I'm gonna wrap it up here. I will archive these on YouTube. I will put these on YouTube later, so you can see them there if you'd like. Otherwise, if you have questions or run into problems as you're putting your webpage together, let me know. But remember, when you have your URL figured out, once you've got it you established where you're going to host this, then add it to the DGSD 395 web ring. So, all right, thanks.